Back again for another year. Simulation Racing returns to PAX, where some of your fastest iRacing drivers compete for $5,000 in total cash prizes. Welcome to the virtual Weathertech Raceway Laguna, Seca. It's located in California in the United States of America. It's just a few hours drive from the cities of Los Angeles and San Francisco. Today it hosts the Almost Pro iRacing 5K Finals. From myself, Jonathan Simon, welcome to the coverage. I'm alongside Blake McCandless for today's broadcast. Blake, we just had our European drivers take to the racetrack a few hours ago. It was exciting. It was action-packed. Now our North American champions are ready to go.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I think the one thing about these Formula V cars is they just know how to put on such a great show. Obviously, this is a great track to showcase that on, so no doubt about it. These drivers were able to watch that first split, that European split that we were able to run just a couple hours ago. I think a couple of these drivers were taking a little bit of notes, probably learned a little bit for what they're going to see in this race right here.
Yeah, for sure. So you've got the Formula V. It's one of the most popular cars on the iRacing service. That's what we are racing here today. Here's the Laguna Seca. Blake, take us through it.
Well, Jonathan, you look at this racetrack and you can see the long straightaways of which these cars, they barely get up to 100 miles an hour when they're getting that toe down that long front straightaways. They head off into turn one, the Andretti hairpin. These cars are going to have such a toe on them. They're not that great of a challenge because of all the control that you have, the low power, but you see the elevation changes, Jonathan. This is what is going to make this track so unique. That corkscrew, this car, despite its low power, gets very light in that section of the racetrack, and obviously with how much control they're able to use, every bit of runoff, all the rumble strips around this place, and so it just makes it for an incredible race.
Yep, certainly. This is that Formula V we were talking about, one of the most popular cars on the iRacing service, brand new to the iRacing service too. And here is your format for today's event. So it's a fixed setup event. Every car, every driver is in an even playing field. We're going to have two heats. So 30 drivers here today, 15 cars each. The top 6 from each of those heats advance to the feature race. The rest of them head to a last chance qualifier event. There'll only be one of them. That'll include the other 18. And the top 6 from that will fill out the rest of the grid for your final. For that final race, Blake, we are not expecting mandatory pit stops, but we are expecting pit stops based on fuel. This car may not make it to the checkered flag in 25 minutes on one fuel tank.
Well, no, and again, that's one of those things I was just talking about a minute ago, right? With that split that we just ran, what we got to see was drivers looking to push that edge on fuel mileage, and they weren't able to make it. Can they make it this time if they want to save or perhaps not want to waste their time saving that fuel and go after this wonderful prize pool that we have in this race?
Yep, certainly. $2,000 US to your winner today. $5,000 in total prizes being paid out all the way down to the 10th position. $100. That's valuable in sim racing, Blake. You can get yourself some good equipment if you win this one today.
Oh, certainly so. You can get these cars. And by the way, Jonathan, this car was recently released on the iRacing servers, and it has quickly become one of the most popular series that we have. You get it with a basic subscription, and obviously with 40% off, no better time to jump in. You get this car, this track, and much more with that baseline subscription today.
Yep, exactly. And you can sign up today, 40% off. You can drive this exact car and this exact racetrack. It's part of included content when you join iRacing. Believe me, there are hundreds of thousands to millions of members out there. Join in on the fun. We're ready to go racing, though. And Blake, ready for this one here at Laguna Seca. We've had a time attack competition, and that's where these drivers have qualified. The 30 fastest North American drivers have qualified for this one. They're going to compete today for that money. We've got drivers from Sim Racing World Championships. We've got drivers who have never been on the world stage before. It's a good proving ground for these new drivers under a lot of pressure.
It really is. Obviously, this car is built to transition and get you ready for a lot of the other vehicles that iRacing has to offer. There's no doubt about that. This is a good proving tool. But Jonathan, in this race, we have so many experienced sim racers, right? We have guys that have been around, that have been in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, who have been pros in both dirt and on the road course side of things. So this field is stacked with experience, and they're going back to a car that's much easier to drive. So it should be great to see how these drivers bring that wealth of knowledge to this racetrack and how they race around each other, and what we saw a lot of pack racing in that European split the first time around.
Yeah, certainly if you're new to Formula Vs, it's an entry-level open wheeler. You're going to see a lot of pack racing, as Blake just mentioned. You're going to see a lot of slipstreaming. We saw some bump drafting in the practice sessions too. Very difficult in this car. But we'll get to that a little later on when we get to the racing action. We've got 30 of the best here racing today. We've got drivers, as Blake said, from eNASCAR World Championships, and you've got drivers who have raced in Rallycross World Championships, drivers we've never even heard of until 24 hours ago when we had this time attack list sent to us. And here's the grid for your first heat. It includes the young Elvis Rankin, only 15 years of age, had his birthday just a week ago. Matt Adams joins him on the front row. Terry Crouch, Jarrett Liebert, very experienced on the iRacing service. Terry Crouch joined iRacing before it was even publicly released. He was there since the beta phases. Brandon Hawken, Riley Thompson on row 3.
Wow, you talk about people who have been around for a very long time. They've been running vehicles like the Skip Barber series that have been very similar to what these cars produce, and very surprised to see at the back of this field Graham Boland, an eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series driver. Tells you that experience is not necessarily the best way to be fast today, and how close these times are in qualifying, Jonathan. They're all within about a second of each other from the front to the back of the grid.
And Boland finished 4th in this event last year, just missed out on the podium. Today, that'll pay an extra $250 if he can promote himself to that next position. Here we go, ready for the start here at Laguna Seca. It's 15 minutes of racing action. And we go green for heat 1. And a poor start, it seemed, from the front for Elvis Rankin. He's already under attack here from the back. How about one of those drivers climbing to the top? In the yellow Formula V, that's Brandon Hawken, who will lead into the Andretti hairpin for the first time.
What an incredible jump there from Hawken. You mentioned 5th to 1st by the time they got to turn 1. He knew something about how to launch these race cars. You could see him leading this pack that is too wide behind them. Looks like Elvis Rankin able to settle out there in 2nd, but what a start from the driver of the number 99, Jonathan.
Yep, certainly. So your field so far, it's led by Hawkins. Elvis Rankin demoted to 2nd after that poor getaway, the young 15-year-old. And behind him, it's Matt Adams, who's raced in Rallycross. This is a totally different form of racing for Matt Adams, the Canadian. Here we go, some action down the back of the pack. We already have a spinner, and that's the 59 of Terry Crouch.
And Crouch looks like he just got a little bit off right here. We're talking about this pre-race, Jonathan. Cold tires, really tough with this grip. Let's see if they could go side by side through the corkscrew. Brandon Hawken, Elvis Rankin, what do they do here on lap 1?
One of the most famous pieces of racetrack in American racing and in the world. We saw Alex Zanardi take to the dirt here many years ago and make the pass, as it's known to your motor racing community. Rankin to the lead ahead of Hawken. That'll be the end of the first lap, but Blake, like we said, we can't get too excited. Formula V racing, there'll potentially be lead changes lap after lap.
Well, certainly so, and we'll see them settle out. We can look at the end of this first lap, and you could see about 4 cars that are within that first tow, maybe 5 if you want to include Graham Boland, who's gone from 7th up to 5th in this first lap. But this is largely what we're going to see is if you're the leader, it's going to be very hard to defend as we're going to take another look at this spin here from Terry Crouch.
So we talked about Terry Crouch, joined iRacing before it was even publicly released in 2008, and the experience not counting there. This Formula V is a new car to iRacing, released only 5 weeks ago, and he certainly needs a few more laps here. Very difficult to drive on cold tires, Blake. If you're new to the iRacing service, even that is simulated tire temperature. This car is difficult to drive when those tires aren't warmed up.
It really is, and that's why we were looking at practice, and we saw these two right here, Elvis Rankin and Brandon Hawken. We were talking about they were nearly, it almost looked like they were bump drafting, but as the laps went on, they got a little bit faster around that fourth and fifth lap. You could see right there in third, right in tow. You get a great onboard shot here of Matt Adams and just how blind this corkscrew is, Jonathan.
Let's have a listen to him through the corkscrew. This is exactly what you would see if you race yourself on iRacing from the cockpit view. This is exactly what you would see in the real world too. Shifts up to fourth gear. You can see that on the dash. And only 2 gears used through this circuit plate between third and fourth. It's a very unique racetrack. As look at the lead as well. Elvis Rankin off the racetrack, but keeps the car pointing in a straight line.
Well, you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of dirt, a lot of dust kicking up. And another thing you're going to see right on here is using every inch of racetrack. Again, these cars a little easier to control than some of the other vehicles that some of these drivers have piloted around this circuit. So you're going to see them go wide here into turn 1, using all of that runoff and using every bit of rumble strips, because with a car that's easier to control, you can gain all that time. As we take a look at this battle for 6th, the 13 of Decker trying to hold off a long pack of cars behind him.
Battle for 6th. Riley Thompson from Knoxville, Tennessee. Didn't advance from the LCQ last year. He took part in this event. We'll be looking to claim a top 10 and get some prize money to his name. As you can see, the lead battle up ahead still continuing. So there's a nice train here forming. 9 drivers within 3 seconds of each other. And that smoke, Blake, very well simulated. That signifies a gear change.
Yes, it does, and that's one of the unique things about these race cars is that gear change you can visually see when it happens. So if you see that smoke, don't worry. Nobody is spinning out. They might be, but that may not be the cause of it. It's obviously that gear change. And the other unique thing about this gear change that we'll have to watch on a lot of these standing starts that we have is the fact that these aren't clutchless transmissions, Jonathan. You have to push down the clutch and shift the gears. That's something that, as a lot of these drivers have been in iRacing, there's a lot of cars where you don't have to do that. So that's something. Yet another
lap here. 10 minutes to go. We do expect these drivers to make it to the end on fuel. Now, it's a good time to talk these tracks on iRacing, Blake. They're all laser scanned. iRacing take
see this battle in the top 3 here. Rankin, Hawken, and Adams. We'll have to see how aggressive they get with this transfer. Obviously, they're in a good spot. They want to improve their position on the grid. But obviously, we look at this battle for 6th. We see Riley Thompson right behind them. This is a battle for that transfer spot. And this is the one that they'll be chasing, trying to get in there. As you see right here, working off of this corner, we get a nice little preview of what we're going to see here at WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca. Riley Thompson trying to hang on, running a little bit off the racing course. And this is what a lot of what we'll see as you see Jeffrey Decker. A bit of an interesting decision here, trying to go to the outside. You see them side by side in front of them, Jonathan, and this is one thing I think with these cars we get to see. A lot of overtakes and positions that we may not usually see right here. A tight, oh man, that is some great action there.
Brilliant stuff. So demoted down the back of the end of the order is Graham Boland, and there he is into the wall. And that could be his race done and dusted. Not sure if the car actually struck the barriers, but certainly a lot of contact here on the Rahal Straight.
Well, and that's what we saw earlier in practice, bump drafting very hard. You see the pointed nose, you see the pointed rear end on these cars. That's going to be hard to navigate, and I don't think that that was any ill intentions there as Graham Boland and it looks like Jeffrey Decker got together right there. Decker was just trying to push Graham along, but those noses don't align, and around goes Graham Boland.
Yeah, we talk about bump drafting, but these cars aren't really designed for that. There's not really a parallel front wing. It's just a pointy nose. We'll have a look at what happened to Boland. So you talked about it, Blake, just to tag on the rear end and a little too much contact. And again, we're not going to worry about penalties and stewarding and all that kind of stuff today, but normally in the World Championship, that would certainly get the eyebrows raised from the stewards.
Oh, it certainly would, but we're not, as you said, we're not going to worry about that. And of course, these drivers like Graham Bolin, like Terry Crouch that have experienced trouble, this is just the first heat. So they do have the LCQ, the consolation to look forward to try to get back into this battle here. And as we've seen, we look at the top three, not a whole lot of aggression right here at this point, Jonathan, with these heats. We haven't seen aggressive moves for the lead. They haven't been exchanging it back and forth as we have more trouble.
Yeah, more trouble as well. A couple cars off the racetrack. So you've got the 27 of Thor Talo. And now we ride on board with Elvis Rankin in the 01. This is a battle for the lead here. Heading into the corkscrew. This is turn 8 and 8A as it's known around Laguna Seca. And then through to Rainy Curve, turn 9. 10-story drop from the top of the corkscrew to Rainy Curve. It's almost 80 feet. It's an incredible drop. You really feel it in the real world when you jump into one of these cars, and it's a big challenge in the sim as Rankin takes to the final corner, and we'll begin a new lap here of Laguna Seca with just over 6 minutes remaining of racing.
You see them chasing each other down the front straightaway. Rankin trying to get right into the toe that he's being pulled. We see another side-by-side battle behind them as Terry Crouch. He's right back into this thing, Jonathan. He had early trouble, but with everything going on, they're going to go 3 wide here down the front straightaway. Huffman, Bolin, and Crouch all trying to vie for some precious grid spots, perhaps for that LCQ happening a little later on.
Crouch needs to be patient here. This is a potential transfer position. Remember, from this heat, your top 8 transfer to, or your top 6, excuse me, transfer to the feature race. So Crouch now down the rear end needs to make up 2 positions here. It's definitely possible for Huffman to make it, but it's all going to come down to the final lap. If Crouch is patient, remember he spun in the opening laps, Blake, he can make those couple of positions up, but then he has to break the toe, which is the difficult part about this battle.
Well, and you also have to keep in mind this 3-car battle is right in front of Jeffrey Decker, who is trying to take that toe, trying to catch up, and I think he's going to successfully do it. So that's going to make this a 4-car battle for this transfer. So the harder you race up here, the more it brings that car behind you into that battle. So you have to be mindful of how you want to battle. I think Brandon Hawken is the reverse example of it. When you look, he's in 3rd. They've separated themselves from 4th place, but Hawken is content to run here. He doesn't want to risk anything and allow that pack behind him or Thompson or Liebert to try and run them down.
100%. Now, the only thing that would matter is that this also determines grid position for that final race. So if you win this heat, you will start on the front row. And that's important right now for Matt Adams. But do you want to start from first? We saw what happened to Elvis Rankin. Demoted down the order. Hawkins started this from the 3rd row, and he's up into 3rd. So, again, in these cars, much easier to drive. It's a rookie service car. It's something that you drive as soon as you join iRacing, which you can start yourself if you log on to iRacing.com today. Sign up. You can get that 40% off deal we spoke about earlier on and join in on the fun here at Laguna Seca. Here we ride on board with Terry Crouch in that number 59 Formula V. Still unable to make up a couple of positions here as he heads over to turn 3.
You see, right as he loses that advantage, all he has to do is get right in the toe of the 2 cars in front of him, and Huffman and Graham Bolin pulls him right back. They have another car that has kind of fallen back to them. Jarrett Liebert in that 5th position, starting to kind of ease back into this battle as they'll go side by side right now for 6th. Huffman and Bolin. Huffman going a little wide, but Bolin a successful overtake there.
Good stuff from Graham Bolin. And now next to cross off his list, up ahead of him is Jarrett Liebert. Liebert starting to fall into the clutches of this pack. It could be a 4-way fight for a transfer position. And here they all up at square. Well, 5 cars now, if you include Jeffrey Decker down the back of the pack. This is difficult into the corkscrew. Everybody's scattered everywhere. There's that. Go on.
Oh, what a move there. Jarrett Liebert recognizes 3 wide through the corkscrew in 1 turn, loses 4 positions, Jonathan. That is incredible stuff.
Yep, so a 60 feet drop through there. You've got to manage that. You've got to manage one of the toughest corners in motorsport folklore, and you've got to also promote yourself into the top 6. So from all these drivers right now, Graham Bolin leads the field in 5th. Terry Crouch is going to promote himself, but we could say goodbye to Jeffrey Decker, who will head to the LCQ. So three of this pack we'll head to the LCQ. So we'll take a look at that battle yet again. This is riding on board with Jeffrey Decker, and look how intense this was in the braking zone here, Blake.
Oh, my goodness, Crouch did an amazing job not getting into the back of that pack. It's so easy to do, and we've seen any misplaced bump is going to send the car in front of you around, so great discipline right there, but also we might see more of the same here the next time they come up on this section of the racetrack. You still have Crouch, Decker, Huffman, and Liebert all under a blanket, and we still have these top three cars. I think they're hearing perhaps what we're saying on this broadcast, Jonathan, of everything that's going on. The leader goes off right there, though. Adams maybe under assault here from Raikkonen into the corkscrew.
Brilliant stuff. Now you hear this. Look, Brandon Hawkins backing off the throttle. He's coasting. He can potentially make the pass. Now, is he saving it for the final lap, Blake? The next lap will be the final trip around here for Heat 1. It's a 1-minute 40-second lap around Laguna Seca. We think Brandon Hawkins could pounce on this final trip around California's finest.
He might just be doing that, and of course this will be a great preview for what we'll see later on and throughout the day. Do you want to be patient? We obviously know that toe is significant, and I think that Adams recognizes that. You could see him trying to snake down the front straightaway, break that toe as we come up on the white flag here.
Final lap of Heat 1. This will sort out the front end of the order. We're expecting all drivers to promote themselves into the final. Now, if there is an incident and they fall out of the top 6, they will go to the LCQs. Here is that battle for the transfer positions. You've got Jeffrey Decker involved. Graham Boland leads the field away. How about Decker to the outside of Terry Crouch?
And you see this battle on the bottom of your screen for that transfer position. We'll keep tabs on that three-way battle for the race lead, but I think the one at the bottom, Jonathan, is the one we may want to watch. Huffman into the curb. He's going to run wide, but they are all in a straight line. A great overtake spot here as they head towards turn 5.
1 mile to go. Half a lap here around Laguna Seca. Decker to the middle to make it 3 wide into turn 5. Could he pull off a double whammy? He can't. Has to form back in, but that puts Terry Crouch on the back foot. And how about Jamison Huffman now as well?
And they're going to be two by two here through turn 6. And remember, Jarrett Liebert right behind this battle. So if something happens, as we see a battle for the lead also happening.
Yep, Rankins from Adams from Hawken. We'll keep one eye on that and one eye peeled on this other battle for the transfer position. So it looks like Elvis Rankin will take heat win from Adams, from Hawkins. We'll let the pictures play out down the back of the pack here through Rainy Curve. It looks like it's Crouch in 5th from Boland, but Decker is right there, ready to pounce into the final couple of corners. Looked like a bit of contact potentially, but we'll take a look at that later. Elvis Rankin wins the heat. Hawkins second. Adams rounds out the podium. That is Jeffrey Decker running wide through the final corner, which means Boland advances, but the 59 of Terry Crouch will not advance. You saw him spin in the background. That means Jamison Huffman takes that important 6th position and transfers through to the final. I'm still trying to sort out the timing screen here, Blake. I'm trying to figure out who is where. There were so many cars involved in last lap scraps.
Oh, there was. Obviously, Crouch right before the end, and you see the live timing and scoring right there. Crouch not even able to get to the line after spinning. He was in a transfer spot, Jonathan, and he's not able to make it in. And we can see Adams, he had the lead going into the last lap. He ends up 3rd, so perhaps that's something that we take with us moving forward.
Yep, exactly. Final lap battles are critical in the Formula V. So the top 6 advance, the rest we say not goodbye, but see you later in the LCQs. Here's your second heat, the final one of the day. It includes Ethan Lamp starting first alongside Justin Brunner. Vicente Salas, a rallycross racer, races in eNASCAR 2, starts alongside David Brown on the second row. You've got Canadian Alex Bergeron. He is a world champion in World of Outlaws, 2-time sprint car champion. And then you saw the rest of the grid on screen. Follow your favorite drivers out there. Noah Carpenter, new to the iRacing universe. Barely raced on iRacing, and he's made it here today. So good on him for being on the world stage. Zach Hudson down the back of the pack. All about the starts here. We remember what happened to Elvis Rankin, who started first. Bogged down. Didn't get off the line at all. Let's find out how Heat 2 plays out. Engines rev, lights on. And we go green for the final heat of the day. So Lamp leads from Brunner. Relatively stable start between those two. Salas didn't get off the line at all. He's swamped by Brown, swamped by Bergeron. And Salas is demoted down to 5th after his poor getaway.
Well, I'll tell you what, we will have to watch that 5th position. Bergeron, another fantastic launch. Maybe it's just something of that part of the racetrack, Jonathan, where you're just able to get a significant launch. You're able to work that toe perfectly. So Bergeron, exactly like Brandon Hawken, able to get up very quickly into 3rd. As you see behind him, the green car of Ross Banfield is off. Able to keep it on the track, though. You go 2 wide behind him. Tommy Bordeaux falling back significantly, losing a ton of positions.
He talked about cold tires on this opening lap. It's a challenge for a lot of these drivers. Some of them are the best in the world. This might be their first ever event on a broadcast, certainly for drivers such as Noah Carpenter. So here's a battle for the lead, right on board with the 83 of David Brown. Sorry, this is for 5th place. Vicente Salas right up ahead. They head into the corkscrew for the first time. There's your lead battle right up ahead of them. We could have 3 again battling for the lead, Blake.
Well, we could. We see side by side for 2nd. Bergeron's able to slot on through. Salas trying all he can to keep up. He goes a bit wide. He's going to lose a little bit of time, may lose that toe. As we see David Brown going to pull up the outside, working into turn 11. They got a long line of cars, so we've seen kind of what we saw last race, a pack of 3 cars at the front, and then we have about 5 right now behind them that are all trying to do their best to chase down these front 3.
And Bergeron for the lead around the outside. He's certainly familiar with heat racing, 2-time World of Outlaws sprint champion. And right behind them is Ethan Lamp, who started on pole. So Bergeron, with that brilliant getaway, is having a race for himself right now. And this is a scrap down the mid-pack as well. Remember, there are transfer positions. Your top 6 again from this heat will advance to the final. Turn 3, very tight. Now, a bit of history on this racetrack, Blake. This infield section didn't exist until a few decades ago. The track used to head from turn 2 and rejoin all the way in the back of shot at turn 5. It was just one straight line as we see a battle for the lead.
That's certainly the case, as obviously they made some changes. This track's always been known, though, for its great speed, its great, tough, fast, tight corners, and it's why it's been a staple in iRacing and, of course, in motorsports lore, like you've mentioned for so long. And, of course, this turn right here, the corkscrew, first couple of times you take this in the sim, Jonathan, this is such a difficult place to get through because, again, you can't see it. If you've never been here before, you have to just kind of go in there, wreck a couple of times before you're able to figure it out.
And Ethan Lamp will be very familiar with Laguna Seca. He's a California native himself. As we ride on board with our pole sitter. So that's your top 3. Then we've got a scrap down the order with Vicente Salas, who leads this pack away, all the way down to your final driver in Zach Hudson. So about a few seconds separate this bunch, and you can see David Brown, Noah Carpenter currently hold those transfer positions. Now with Laguna Seca here, Blake, I love this circuit. We head into, actually, let's talk about that in a moment's time, because have a look at Tommy Bordeaux. A lot of different battles into the Andretti hairpin. Downhill braking zone makes it tougher too.
Oh, it certainly does, as Carpenter and Tommy Bordeaux going to go side by side here through turn 3, and Carpenter going to have to check up, and he's kind of going to get trained here. Doesn't have the toe there in through turn 4. He's going to lose a handful of spots. This is how tight this racing is. This is what we're going to see cars feed off of each other, mere inches apart as they work into these corners. And these scraps, as you've been saying, Jonathan, they have been happening all over this racetrack, and it's going to be really hard, especially around these transfer spots, to not want to battle, to get in line and try to push that car in front of you forward.
Well, it looks like fun, doesn't it? Join in on the action. Sign up yourself, 40% off. Go to iRacing.com/membership. And you can drive from this particular view as well. Get yourself a steering wheel and pedals. Race against this bunch. They'll probably be out there in multiplayer racing. And that's what makes iRacing so fine, Blake, is its multiplayer service.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You get to come on here, and obviously, you'll be racing at your skill level, too. The iRating system is great at matching you up against people of your competition, and whether you're new or inexperienced or somebody who can very quickly climb through the ranks, you're always racing against drivers on your skill level that can help you kind of hone those skills. And we see a very high degree of skill level here, Jonathan, and these three drivers, Bergeron still leading them after working his way up through fifth, but just like we saw in that first heat, it's a 3-car breakaway.
You know what requires a level of skill is identifying which car is which. They're all running black liveries. We have to look at the helmets, and if we can't tell from the helmets, we've got to look at the timing screen. Oh, my God. So is it Bergeron who leads, as you said, from Brunner, from Ethan Lamp? That's your top three. Number 1 is Justin Brunner. He's not a world champion. This is only a yearly event. We saw in the European leg, it was Diogo Pinto who won this. 2,000 euro richer himself. Will we see Bergeron win the 2,000 bucks here today?
We may very well see it. I don't think anybody who is used to driving on the surface that is not on the asphalt on this racetrack, he's good at them both, Jonathan. And, of course, you see a little bit of what we in the sim racing world call a little bit of blinking right there from Alex Bergeron. Just a little bit of, this part of virtual racing, right? You have drivers from all over the world, Alex Bergeron hailing from Canada. So occasionally you'll just see a little bit of buffering in the surface, but you can see it's clear for him, not clear through the corkscrew for one driver, spun around there. He'll have to get going. That is Noah Carpenter that took a spill. He was running 7th, Jonathan.
And Noah Carpenter is very new to iRacing, like we said. I'd never heard of him until a couple of days ago. He's excited to be here for this event. And imagine racing on the same racetrack as a sim racing world champion and Alex Bergeron. And this scrap continues. So Lamp to the inside. Won't get too excited to this because it will probably go down to the final lap as we will watch Ross Banfield and his spin over at the corkscrew. So, Blake, this is that 80-meter drop we spoke about, and he just had nowhere to go there.
No, he really didn't. He did an incredible job driving through it, but unfortunately for Carpenter, when you get down into that corkscrew, you hit the brakes a little too hard, kind of kick the rear end of the car out. It gets so light as it's dropping down all of that elevation. So unfortunately for him, that's just a simple mistake, and it'll be hard for him to recover. He kept it going straight, didn't get too much damage though, but gonna have to rely on some more mistakes to have a chance to climb back in this one.
And while we were watching that, Alex Bergeron down to 3rd. But like we saw in the last heat, not the worst place to be in the world. Vicente Salas is starting to catch this bunch. There's a 10th or 2 slower last lap, but there's only about 2.8 seconds behind. So if these three start battling, Salas is back in a battle for the top 4.
And Salas, one of the best when it comes to racing on these road courses. Obviously, another Coca-Cola, eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver that is in this race, but he is particularly well known for being very good on these road courses. And like you said, this lead battle, if they sorted it out, they could use that toe that they give each other to probably have a little bit of an advantage over Salas, but Salas starting to work his way in, and I think he's starting to catch a little bit of that toe as they're working about 80, 90 miles an hour here towards the Andretti hairpin.
And there's Bergeron with the purple helmet to the outside and through to the Andretti hairpin. Named after 1978 Formula One world champion Mario Andretti, one of 2 US F1 champions, along with Phil Hill. And then we continue to turns 3 and 4. And so still in the lead is Lamp from Bergeron from Brunner. Now, interesting story about Alex Bergeron. He's been sim racing since he was 5 years old, and even started on the PlayStation on the World of Outlaws sprint car games. And now he finds himself as a world champion in iRacing. Always good to hear the story of our best talent on iRacing.
No, it certainly is, and Bergeron is somebody I've had the pleasure of watching for a very long time here in iRacing, whether it's mostly been dirt events, private events, obviously, here in the World Championships as well. Somebody that just takes to this sim racing so well, and it doesn't matter. Road courses, dirt racing, even on the oval side, very competitive, and and just knows he's just one of those natural challenges, Jonathan. He just knows how to wheel a virtual race car.
Certainly does, as we ride on board with Lamp. Got Justin Brunner right behind him. This is much better for Brunner. He finished 17th in the feature last year. He could start as low as 6th, heading into the final in a few minutes' time. We've got the LCQ coming up after this, and then that final feature race, which is going to be ever interesting. And how beautiful does this circuit look, Blake? We spoke about the laser scanning that iRacing do. There's over 100 tracks available if you sign up. And they bring those laser scanners to the circuit. So every bump you see in the braking zone, every piece of elevation change, this is exactly what it's like in the real world as we see Vicente Salas join the lead battle.
It is incredible. And, of course, this track has been around really since the inception of iRacing. So it's a track that if you've gone through the ranks on the road course license side of iRacing, you certainly are familiar with it. It's a track that's so fun, challenging in the same degree. And, of course, like you mentioned, Vicente Salas starting to work in this battle. The last trip by, it was about half a second faster than Ethan Lamp that ran in second place. So he's caught this toe, and he's going to be a part of this lead battle through the waning minutes of this heat.
Look at Vicente Salas. How about that 6/10 faster last lap around? And I spoke about it, didn't I, Blake? When these three start dicing near the front, Salas could join the pack. The young 18-year-old ready to go here and ready to potentially start near the front in your final if he can make it to the top of the grid.
Well, he's going to catch this pack of that. I think there's no doubt. We've seen the battling up front, and we've seen the pace that Vicente has. I don't think he has anything to worry about, but will he take the Brandon Hawken approach and wait a little bit, or will he get more aggressive trying to battle for second, for third? We'll have to see what he does once he catches this pack. He'll have about 2 laps to try and do something, and, of course, don't forget these other drivers. They want to win just like Vicente does as well.
Yeah, so we still have a battle for your transfer position. Tommy Bordeaux in 5th, David Brown 6th. And we'll keep an eye on that as well, like we did at the end of the last one. As Salas now seems to have dropped down the order by just a bit. Nails it into the braking zone. Fastest lap of the race for the young American. The California native from Temecula is going to join these top 3, and he's going to only have about a few miles to do it to make it to the front.
1:41.9 was the lap that Vicente ran. No one else, Jonathan, has reached that 1:41 mark in this race, and Salas right at the back of this battle. This is going to get heated.
How about that for a sight? Heading onto the Rahal Straight. This is a difficult left-hander here at turn 6. Rise up here, uphill through the Rahal Straight, and then into the corkscrew. Is he brave enough to make a move?
He thought about it. He thought about it.
Oh, such a tough braking zone as well. Has he dropped too far behind? We don't think so. He's certainly the most in form of your top 4. I think picking off 3 drivers on the final lap is hard, Blake, but it's possible.
It's certainly possible, and we'll have to see. It all comes down to what Ethan Lamp wants to do here. We have 1:25 left. They're running 1:42 laps, so not a whole lot of time to do it. How patient is Lamp and, of course, Justin Brunner in that battle for second and third? They know if they make a move, Salas is going to be right there. But as we saw last heat, do you want to be the leader on the last lap? We'll get a focus right here. White flags in the air.
Final lap of Heat 2. Salas takes to the outside in the background. Bergeron still leads from Lamp, from Brunner. How about Salas to the inside? He has to pick off somebody at least into turn 3. Has a peek up the inside, but will need to form up. So nobody ready to pounce here. Remember, we're expecting each of these top 4 to advance to the final, but it's important for grid position heading to that feature race. Down into turn 5. Couple opportunities here. Lamp looking, searching to the inside. Nowhere to go.
An incredible defensive line there from Bergeron gets the run off, and you can see him already swerving, trying to move that draft. Salas into third.
Brilliant stuff by Salas around the outside into turn 6. And then there were 2. Lamp to the inside of Bergeron. If Salas plays this poised, He could pick off both of them. Lamp to the lead. Will he win the heat? Nails it through the exit here. No Alex Zanardi through there. And Bergeron now under attack from Vicente Salas. It's going to go down to the final corner like we saw last time in Heat 1. Salas to the dirt. I think it's down to your top two. Bergeron's got the up and under sorted very well. Brunner's on the attack on Salas to the outside. Final braking zone of the race. Oh, Salas turns around. Alex Bergeron. Bergeron will hopefully advance. Hopefully the car will make it to the finish. The Lamp wins the heat. Salas second. Brunner, we think, is going to finish third. And Bergeron will cross the line in fourth. Oh, he won't be happy with that, the Canadian.
No, he won't, and he tried to set up to get that run off. He wanted to back up his corner and get a great exit, and unfortunately, Vicente right there, he's battling right with them. He wasn't anticipating that cut down, so that spins Bergeron around. Thankfully, not a costly move there for Bergeron. He still finishes in fourth, so he transfers in. But, man, what a great little battle we had there amongst our top four.
And lucky Bergeron turned it around, because look at the gap between him and Brown. 0.3 of a second to the 6th position. And he may not, well, he may have lost another spot. So in the feature, he's going to start from the back. We'll take a look at the grid for your consolation race.
If that's what we'll do.
So we got Jeffrey Decker starting from the front. We've only got 8 drivers for this last chance qualifier. Alex Martinez will start in second. You see Banfield will start from fourth. He had some issues in his earlier heat, but how about Terry Crouch, who we know has the pace, was turned around on the final lap. He's ready to go here in your LCQ from the back.
He'll try to do that, as well as Zach Hudson started in 10th and finished there as well in heat number 2. So obviously looking to get a much better run in here this time, but 6 spots up for grabs. We'll see what these drivers are able to do.
Lights illuminate. We go green for your last chance qualifier. Great start from Martinez. Thor Tuller in the 3rd position right behind. Ross Banfield maintains 4th, so it's been a pretty stagnant start so far. And Decker holds the inside. And how about this from Thor Tuller? Trying to make a move up the inside of Martinez, who takes to the grass there. But everybody, that's a very clean start, it's got to be said, as they head into turn 3.
Well, from what we've seen here, Jonathan, yes, indeed, a very clean start. We didn't see that same launch from that 5th position, but obviously a smaller grid right here. 1 driver's off, Noah Carpenter. That turn is one that we'll have to watch in the main feature. I think every single heat we've seen so far today, Jonathan, turn 4, we see somebody go wide right through there on these cold tires.
Let's keep our eyes on Terry Crouch. You can see him in that Formula V. It's painted blue at the back, white at the front, and he's up 1 position into 6th here at the start as he disposed of Noah Carpenter, but luckily he's still within that lead scrap. So Decker leads from Martinez. Remember, from this LCQ, your top 6 will advance and fill out the rest of that final feature grid. So 2 drivers will miss out. We'll say goodbye to them, as Crouch was just passed by Noah Carpenter there around the outside. Noah Carpenter looking hungry.
He certainly is. He's going to try to do everything possible to gain that track position back that he lost after starting in the 6th position. And the one thing here, Jonathan, this race is going to be so tight. We've seen that there is just a small difference in pace in some of our leaders that we've had in these heats, but everyone right here, Jonathan, so close in qualifying in terms of the lap times that they've been able to put down throughout practice. So this is going to be the most stacked on top of each other race that we've seen so far today, as they're looking 3 wide into turn 1.
I thought it was 4 wide for a second until the camera shot panned. Oh, we got contact. Don't tell me that's Ross Banfield again. Oh, the luck hasn't been on his side today. And Ross Banfield will head to the back of the order here in 8th. So damage for him. And it's unfortunate. Just the luck of the draw with racing sometimes, Blake. You can't choose it when you head into these events.
And sometimes you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, Jonathan, and that's exactly what we saw here into turn 2. Cutting down, tight quarters, and unfortunately for Banfield, he gets the worst end of it. You see him shot off into the gravel, and he'll need a prayer here to get back into this one.
So it's your top two up ahead. They're in their own little scrap. And then down in third, Noah Carpenter's promoted himself to third after that poor start. We saw him off the racetrack. Jarrett Liebert's going nowhere. He started this lap in fourth. And he could be down to fifth here, or sixth even. Takes to the dirt in the corkscrew as we ride on board with Terry Crouch. Grab a box of popcorn. Oh, and now he's had to slow down. So, Blake, that's a sim racing penalty there. If you cut the racetrack, the service tells you to slow down a certain amount.
That is the case here, and we saw about 3-4 tires off the racing service there for Liebert. There is a little bit of a give right there, but obviously iRacing well aware that drivers will cut any corner they can to get an advantage. That was just a little too much for Liebert, so he gives that time back, but not enough to completely lose this battle.
And so you also saw Noah Carpenter up. It's hard to pick apart. There's so many black liveried cars out there. This is Carpenter dipping a wheel on the dirt after rainy curve and off the racetrack. A huge driver error there for Noah Carpenter, who had such a brilliant start to this race.
He did, but in all intents and purposes, he's still in this race, caught up and is trying to hang on to that toe for sixth. He's in seventh right now, so he's one spot out, but all he needs is somebody up here to battle very close, which we've seen plenty of. We see Thor Tullo and Terry Crouch right here battle for third.
You ever raced around Laguna Seca, Blake, in the real world?
Real world, no, but plenty in the sim as far as road courses are concerned.
It's a brilliant racetrack. We'll join in on the action. As we said, you can sign up yourself. 40% off if you go to iRacing.com/membership. That's for all new memberships. Join in right now. Grab yourself a wheel, grab yourself a set of pedals, and join in on the fun. This is the view you'll get in most rookie races. You can drive the Formula V. You can drive Laguna Seca. It's included in the iRacing content pack when you join the service for the first time. And the racing continues on down near the front. So, as we said, 6 drivers will advance. Looks like Ross Banfield has kept the car running, but he's well out of contention. And Noah Carpenter is now rejoining the pack and could potentially advance himself. It's Jeffrey Decker you're watching on screen from Alec Martinez. Now, they will fill out the rest of the order. So from 13th place onwards, Blake, this sorts out the 7th row onwards for your feature grid.
And all of those spots are going to be critical. We've seen a quick separation between the front pack and the back half of the pack in these races. So every spot right here, you're going to want every single one of them. As we ride on board here, another fantastic view of this racetrack, and Martinez using every bit of that rumble strip. That's something that in some of these vehicles you may not often see because of the degree of control that it takes, but in these cars that are a little slowed down and the wheelbase is spread out, you have a lot of room. You see a little bit of a counter steer right there from Alec Martinez using every inch of the track. That's what these cars can provide, just a learning tool. And is he heating up the tires?
He's doing something. Maybe he knows he's on camera. He's giving us a show.
Perhaps.
Right up on top of the Rahal Straight. You can see this part of the Rahal Straight was flattened back in 2006 just to help your MotoGP riders. This is a racetrack that's hosted everything from MotoGP to Superbikes to karts, IndyCar, you name it. Global Mazda MX-5 Cup. You can race that on iRacing too. So much available. As these two are having a very calm race. Might as well make a cup of tea and watch these two. It's a lot more hectic down the back of the pack with Terry Crouch in third. And we know that all of these positions matter. Now, wait a second there. Jeffrey Decker, that's not part of the racetrack, mate. We'll rejoin as we look at the prize pool for today's event. So this is not for this particular race. This is your consolation event. But that's for the feature race coming up. $2,000. Big ones for your winner. $100 for 10th place. It's actually $100 from 6th to 10th onwards. So if you start from 13th, which is where the winner of this consolation race will start, only got to make up 3 positions, Blake, and you'll be $100 richer.
Exactly right, and that's why every single spot these drivers are going to fight for it in these type of events. It's not part of a series. You're not looking for points. You're looking to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to win the big bucks. $2,000 on the line in a series and at a track where we know we're going to have close quarters at the end. It's going to make for a pretty exciting moment. But we see right here, pretty tame up front. We're hearing from Alex Martinez that, you know, he may be content to just kind of ride around and get to the end of this thing, not push the issue, not risk anything, and get that top two starting grid spot out of this consolation when they tack it back onto the rest of the grid that have run in our heats. But this battle right here is what we're going to be watching for these transfer spots.
Yeah, and this is all based on talent. The Formula V, one of the entry-level open wheelers. You've got a fixed setup. Oh, how about that? Jarrett Liebert going sideways through the exit of the corkscrew. He made it through from your earlier heats. Oh, excuse me, didn't make it through from your heats, and that's why he appears in this consolation race. So all the drivers who didn't advance appear in this one. And then we've got the final feature race coming up next. It's going to be a 25-minute banger. Believe me, you're going to enjoy it. And you're going to see more of Jarrett Liebert because so far, for the moment, he will advance along with Crouch, along with Thor Tuller in the 5th position. And Noah Carpenter currently holds that critical 6th position, that transfer spot. He's behind these three.
He is behind these three, and he's holding off Zach Hudson, who's about to catch them. But obviously this battling up here for 5th and for 4th, it's going to change things up. It's going to slow them down. We've seen these drivers, they'll run in the 1-minute 42-second range or high 142s when they're running in a single file line. These drivers right here, last time by, 1-minute 43.9s is what these drivers were running in this pack. So going side by side even just a little bit is enough. Even in these cars that don't necessarily have the most power, it's enough to slow you down quite significantly and allow those cars behind you to catch up.
How about that puff of smoke from the downshift of Jarrett Liebert's number 5 Formula V? Used by many greats in the past. Niki Lauda's driven this. The late, great world champion Niki Lauda. Keke Rosberg. He's also driven this very machine when he was entering his first stages of motor racing in his young career. And now through the corkscrew yet another time. So 5 minutes to go. Anything you see, Blake, that we might be aware of? It's just that transfer position I'm worried about at the moment. Can Noah Carpenter hold off Hudson? Or even Banfield if he catches the two?
Well, and I think that's what we're going to have to watch, right? I think a lot of these drivers, they want to be in this event. They don't want to risk too much. They know that they really have no chance at catching your front two and Alec Martinez and Jeffrey Decker. So I imagine Liebert, Crouch, Tullo, they're going to play things pretty safe here, but Hudson and Carpenter, the chess match that goes on when you're driving these cars, where do you want to be at the right time to position that pass for that transfer spot? Hudson and Carpenter are going to have a lot of exchanging and a lot of mind games being played with each other as we take a look at that battle right now. Carpenter a little loose.
It's going to be a brilliant battle between these two. 4 minutes to go. Going to wave goodbye to one of them. And the other one will be celebrating with joy just to start from the rear end in your feature. A lot of stress for both of them. And Zach Hudson himself, who's also, I spoke about Terry Crouch, who's also in this heat, but Zach Hudson's also been a member of iRacing since August 2008. That was the official launch date for iRacing.
Hudson's been around a very long time. Runs a team in Nexus Esports, does a great job with that on the competitive side on the oval ladder, and I'm sure he has a lot of folks in that organization that are cheering him on, usually more in a managerial role, trying to grab the steering wheel of this one and obviously just trying to position himself in the right spot to try and make a move here on Carpenter in these waning minutes.
All right, so let's establish what's happening. 3 minutes to go, couple laps. Decker and Martinez look fine in the lead. Jarrett Liebert, Terry Crouch, Thor Tuller, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They look fine in that second pack. It was that battle we just had eyes on just a moment earlier behind these 5 cars between Noah Carpenter and Zach Hudson. Here we ride on board with Alec Martinez.
See him riding in 4th gear, going to hit near the top of that as they hit roughly 90, 92 miles an hour. And you see Martinez still not really pushing the issue there. You saw him lift there on entry very well before he likely had to. You saw him run wide, which again is something unique to these cars when you're taking that. Andretti hairpin is running way wide and cutting down a lot to make that corner. But Martinez, we've seen him. He hasn't looked at any bit interested in trying to make his way by Decker, which, again, maybe he's just waiting for that last lap to try and get one spot better, but he hasn't really been pushing the issue all too much. You could see another early lift right there and take that toe, but he could have gotten a run right there off of Decker, who got his right side tires on, and you're exactly right. He backs off just a little bit.
And you spoke about turn 1, so they reached 92 there. It's possible in the slipstream 2, or in the draft, to reach almost 100 miles an hour. That's 155 kilometers an hour. It might not seem like much in a race car, but in these machines, it's quite a hefty amount of speed as they drop down the corkscrew. Do you want to hear a funny fact about the corkscrew? I measured it. For you NBA fans, it's 8 Yao Mings stacked on top of each other. You like that one?
Great math right there, Jonathan. I love it.
Yao Ming at 7'6", or 7'5", according to the Olympics. Anyway, Olympics on later on in a few weeks. Oh, I thought the driver was pitting there. That's a slowdown penalty. Now I'm trying to figure out which of the 500 black cars that is today.
Garrett Liebert.
It was Jarrett Liebert. Okay, so he'll be all right in the 5th position as the white flag waves and we begin the final lap.
And remember, that's not the first time that we've seen Liebert really push the issue there. So he's had a couple of slowdown penalties. And Jonathan, I think he's really the only driver that we've seen physically pull over and have to give that time back. So assuming that Liebert's in a good spot to transfer here, we'll have to watch that as we look forward to the feature.
Yeah, 100%. So final lap, and it looks like Noah Carpenter's comfortably ahead of Zach Hudson. The gap last time around was 1.4 across the line. Now it's 1.5. And Carpenter, unless he makes a mistake on this final lap, looks comfortable to advance. So we may wave goodbye to Hudson and Banfield. We've still got grid positions to sort out here on your final lap. What would you do in this situation, Blake? Push for it? Take the risk?
Oh, I think I would wait until the last corner, turn 11, to try to make something, because if something happens, it's not going to affect you. But we're having a side-by-side battle for the lead here in the win. Alec Martinez content to ride no longer.
Oh, we talked about Alex, and Alex Zanardi went there on the dirt. I thought he was going to do the same thing back in 96, going for the switchback on Jeffrey Decker. This is for the win of your LCQ. These two have been together all race, and now they're finally going to dice it out here on the final lap. This is turn 11 that Blake was talking about. Running hot is Decker. Oh, but he pulled it up in time. Brilliant skill with the left foot on the brake pedal. It's going to be a drag race to the line, and we think Jeffrey Decker will take home the win ahead of Alec Martinez.
He will, and looking through the rest of the field, nothing too much happening to change the outlook of the drivers who will be moving on. But as we saw, Martinez was content to ride in line, but waited until that last lap, and we saw a good little boust right there. As you see, 69 1/1000ths of a second is Jeffrey Decker's advantage there.
Yeah, 600s, almost 700s between the top two. We say goodbye to Canadian Zach Hudson and Ross Banfield, who was unfortunately involved in a collision in the early laps, but the top 6 will advance to that final feature race. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Now, Blake, you've done some heat racing before on the iRacing service. It's very fun. It's very action-packed. Boy, I'm too nervous right now as a driver. This is $2,000 on the line for your winner. I wouldn't want to be in that position. I like sitting comfortably where I am right now in my room.
I think I'm right there with you, Jonathan. I have the competitive bug as well as anybody, but this is a really intense spot to be for these drivers. We've gone through the heats, we've gone through the consolation races, and one thing about an event like this, Jonathan, is that since we transferred most of the drivers in, these heats have really been a good testing ground, a good proving ground of what type of moves you want to make, when you can make moves, and really an opportunity to learn what might work, and also on the flip side, learn what didn't work. So they have a little bit of a notebook to go back to. Obviously, a lot of these drivers, friends with each other, acquaintances, they'll talk things out and just kind of collect all that information and try to put it in the old noggin for when it becomes for real and we go here in this 25-minute feature.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the drivers are currently in a virtual warm-up session, so those drivers who sat out the heats, they advance to the final. They'll get to drive onto the service right now, get a feel for the car. We are expecting pit stops. It's not mandatory, but we don't think the car will make it to the checkered flag in this feature race.
We'll get a little bit of her.
I was going to say, Blake, sorry, these are your drivers practicing that pit entry. It's very possible here at Laguna Seca to chuck the car into the wall there and into the tire barriers. So that says to me, Blake, we're expecting pit stops. We're going to see it unless somebody can sit in the draft for the entire race and save fuel, but it's going to be very tough.
Well, it's very tough because of this racetrack, that track map that we looked at earlier. Obviously, that going up in elevation, not going to help with fuel saving, but if we're going down, obviously that's a big help. So as we'll take a look at it, when we talk about saving fuel, we'll get a good look of it right here. Obviously, the beautiful layout that we have here at this racetrack. You look at that Andretti hairpin. We've seen a fair amount of action off of these starts and jockeying for position. We'll see the best drivers who have transferred into the main feature have the opportunity to do that. But talking about that fuel strategy, as we'll take a look here in just a moment at those elevation changes. When you're going uphill, very hard to save fuel, but on that downhill slope from the corkscrew on, you can hit that clutch pedal and coast a little bit in these cars. Use that toe, use that draft to try and save a little bit. I don't know how much that fuel strategy is going to come into play, but we obviously saw it was close in that first race. So if they go in and prepare for it, they might be in a good spot to do it.
Well, you use about 0.15 gallons a lap, 0.6 liters, depending on your units of choice. So this is the format we've had today, and we're finally at the bottom. Now we head to a 25-minute feature race with 18 of the best. The top 10 positions pay prize money, $2,000 for the winner, $1,000 for second, and so on, all the way down to $100 for last place. This is that lovely, beautiful, elegant Formula V. It's an entry-level open wheeler, Blake, and it's one of the most fun cars we've ever had introduced to the iRacing service.
Well, and you think about the thousands of members that we have on iRacing. They've been racing in their own series, the cars that they love running for so long. This car recently introduced to the service and yet has become probably one of, if not the favorite series. I know someone in particular, TJ Majors, has been running these cars a significant amount. He loves these cars, and personally, I love them myself. I was running it the other day at Lime Rock Park, and we see this is how difficult that pit road entry is going to be, Jonathan.
Oh, no. Oh, God. Well, that car's done and dusted. You can't even put that into cash converters and get some money for it. So 45 miles an hour as pit entry speed here, Blake. It's very tough to get this car stopped. It's very tight, that left-hander. That's not the first time we're going to see somebody strike that wall in the next 10 years.
No, I don't think so. I know as somebody who was new to this racetrack, that pit road entry, it's so inviting because you think that that turn is so similar to turn 11. You have the same lifting spots, but the radius of that turn is so tight, and obviously you can gain a lot of ground if you do it well. So it's good to see these drivers practicing that because I don't want to see that decide this race and backing up into traffic. If someone's sitting there and everybody's pitting, we could see a couple of cars collected in that.
Well, you just mentioned that. I think you've jinxed somebody in the field, surely. I'm sure
probably.
We're going to see something like that later on. So we'll take a look at this final feature grid for today's event. It's got 18 of the best. It's the young Elvis Rankin, the 15-year-old, just celebrated his birthday a week ago. Ethan Lamp starts alongside him. You've got Canadian Brandon Hawken alongside NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver Vicente Salas. We'll go through the rest of the grid quickly. Riley Thompson starts on row 4. Alex Bergeron, your two-time World of Outlaws champion, should have started higher up the grid, but unfortunately in that last lap, because it collision in the heat drops him down the order. Tommy Bordeaux also starts on row 6. How about Jeffrey Decker, who won that LCQ, starts alongside his compatriot for that LCQ, Alec Martinez. And the field rounded out by Noah Carpenter on row number 9. It's a 420-meter run down to turn 1. Plenty of slipstreaming available. It's all about the starts here. This is going to be critical. One last time around your feature. 25 minutes of racing. Laguna Seca, the Formula V. $2,000 on offer. Lights illuminate, engines rev, and we go green for the final time today. Great start there. Looked like the 56 of Riley Thompson. But for the lead right now, Elvis Rankin's had a brilliant getaway. I don't like the looks of Ethan Lamp here at the start. He's dropped down to third. Brandon Hawken promotes himself up into second.
A great start yet again from Brandon Hawken as we get a wonderful view here. 3 wide, sorts into 2 back there. That's Terry Crouch. We mentioned his name a lot today. So we see him slot under Jeffrey Decker, rather going to go under David Brown. That first side-by-side battle going on. Everybody else up front, though, able to sort out single file.
Yep, so down near the front, still Lamp in the third position. Is that Salas in fourth? It is. So Vicente Salas still looming. He loves that fourth position, but it's all going to come down to the final lap. Now remember, this is a longer one, 25-minute race, and we are expecting a pit stop. Here they scream through turn 6 for the first time. Brilliant job by our iRacing crew behind the scenes, providing that shot of your Formula Vs here on the opening lap of the feature. And into the corkscrew for the first time. This is where damage looms.
It is when you have 9 cars, Jonathan, in a single line. You're hoping that everybody has the same lifting point. Even if you're not going side by side, one car is off into the trap. It is the 83 of David Brown, not the start that I'm sure he wanted. And again, that's how tough this corkscrew can be. Cold tires, we mentioned it before.
Sorry, Blake, to interrupt there. So first lap pit stops, we were expecting the opposite. We have got some incidents down the back of the pack. We'll get to that in a moment's time. And Jeffrey Decker involved in that one. He's entering the pit lane, along with Terry Crouch, a couple of other drivers as well. So for the lead right now, it's Vicente Salas. Your top 3 entered the pits there on the opening lap.
My goodness. What in the world did we just see, Jonathan? Apparently we saw a lot of coordination. Everybody had the same idea. But Jonathan, as someone who personally loves kind of entering pit road by themselves and not having a ton of cars, doing it on the first lap, I'm not surprised we saw a lot of chaos. That is a very risky move and obviously coordinated in some way between these drivers. But nevertheless, we'll see how it works out for them if they can leave pit road with tow together, because that's the other thing. Everybody's going to be so spread out on this strategy, they're not going to have that tow. So perhaps the drivers that haven't pit yet will have that advantage. We'll get another look at everything that just happened.
Oh, goodness. Sorry there. Jeez, that caught me by surprise. This is a replay of Terry Crouch, who entered the pit lane, and he's repairing some damage right now. Essentially, his run for some prize money is pretty much essentially over. Elvis Rankin holds that 10th position so far. Now, let's talk about this for a second, Blake. So you've got 2 different groups. This has eventually turned out into a road cycling event. You've got your lead pack. You've got the peloton who have made their pit stops. This is how Formula V racing turns out.
I think you're exactly right. The bike illusion is a great way to put it, because you want to run in a pack in this car. It's faster. You get that tow. The whole group speeds up. I'm just worried for these cars that came down pit road. We see Tommy Bordeaux nearly scrapes the tire barriers. We see Bordeaux, Jarrett Liebert, another car coming down pit road. So we have 4 or 5, Noah Carpenter in as well. So this has been strategy galore to start this race as we see another 4 cars come down pit road.
Yeah, and 4 left who haven't. And now who are we watching here? This will be the 4 that haven't. So they've passed these 4. That's the crew that pitted on the first lap. That includes Elvis Rankin, Brandon Hawken, all those guys, Justin Brunner, Ethan Lamp, Alex Bergeron. And so the pit stop time here, Blake, is something we need to consider. How long the pit stop takes and the travel through pit lane. Because for Vicente Salas, Matt Adams, if they work together and can maintain a good gap, at the end of the race, they could feed out ahead of this bunch.
They very well could, but they can't battle each other. You have those 4 or 5 cars that are all in a line working with each other, and I think they recognize what's at stake, so they're just going to stay in line and work together right now. Will we see 5 cars be faster than 2? That's the question, and if you are Vicente Salas and you recognize that you're losing pace, well, guess what? You can come down pit road, but if you keep that advantage, you can stay out.
We'll wait and see. That's something to look out for the rest of this event. So, as we said, top 4 have not pitted. And this is your top 2 of Vicente Salas and Matt Adams. Now, do they have the gap on Elvis Rankin? I don't think so. As they head through the final couple of corners. Can be about 25 to 30 seconds. They do need to make up about 3 seconds here. to feed out ahead of Rankin. Now, if Rankin wins this, this will be a brilliant win for the young man. I remember seeing him in sim racing as young as 13 years old. Obviously, the minimum age you can join the iRacing service. You should sign up today as well, 40% off. And for Rankin, he's getting better and better year after year. Is he a star of the future we may see on the sim racing service?
May very well be. And of course, when we were talking about the fact that this is the second iteration of this race, we ran the European split earlier, Jonathan, and this is a North American split. In the race we ran earlier today, same thing happened. We saw a group pit very early and go back out on the racetrack. Well, guess what? They are the group that ended up battling for the lead and won this race. So when we talk about notebooks, we talk about preparation. They were able to get a first-hand look at what that strategy might look like, and apparently it worked out. So we'll see Salas and Adams still continuing to stay out on the racetrack, but at least the first iteration of this race, this strategy worked.
Yep, so that ahead is Elvis Rankin ahead of Brandon Hawken, and these three behind, it's Justin Brunner from Ethan Lamp from Alex Bergeron. So that's everybody on screen right now from 4th to 8th. And this could split into two groups, and that will be critical for race victory, critical for the $2,000 you can win in today's PAX Arena Almost Pro iRacing Final.
This is what they're racing for right there. You see $2,000 to win this race in a car where you're going to be so tight, so linked up. And, you know, this is a $2,000 decision here. If you're Vicente Salas, do you continue to run on the racetrack with Matt Adams? Do you come down pit road? We'll try to compare the lap times here. Vicente, a 141.581. And as this pack starts to make their way towards the start-finish line, led by Elvis Rankin, Brandon Hawken, will get their times in right now, 142.442. So about a tenth, a little bit better for some of the cars that are further back in this pack. So they're gaining a slight advantage here as this big pack.
Oh, and look at that. Number one there of Justin Brunner slots in nicely at the Andretti hairpin. So these five right now, they had the gap. Rankin was 21 seconds behind Salas for the win. Now that they've grouped up, are they going to be quicker, Blake? Now it looks like they're losing some time to Salas and Adams. This is perfect for the American of Salas and the Canadian of Adams up ahead. The longer these drivers battle, the closer they'll be to victory.
And that's exactly right. When we see that battles, that's what Vicente Salas and Matt Adams want to see. The more single file like this that they see, is you right on board with Ethan Lamp, this is what is going to potentially hurt that lead group, is that organization, that tow is going to pick them up time. But are they going to be able to sort it out? Are they content to run in line? See Lamp getting right up to the back of Brunner right there, and obviously getting through this corkscrew. We could see a mistake if they're running too closely.
1200cc engine. Sounds nice.
It does.
It's no F1 engine. It's no IndyCar engine, but it sounds pretty cool. And this car originally, in the past, the Formula V, it's been involved in racing for 6 decades now, all the way back to the 60s. Oh, goodness. I thought there was contact there, Blake. I saw you stand back.
There was. What a save.
It's tough racing in the virtual universe, isn't it, too, Blake? Just trying to judge somebody who's racing in a completely different room to you. You have to remember, it's all virtual. It's not real.
That is the case. It makes it difficult to, in some ways more difficult, in some ways easier to communicate with your drivers and have a little bit of open line communication, whether it's, you know, the in-sim radio or TeamSpeak, things of that nature that obviously you have available, but you're exactly right. You don't get that same feel as you would in real life. And you know what's separating this pack is Hawken and Rankin. We saw this in practice. These two drivers, what looked like almost bump drafting right here, and they are starting to edge away a little bit from this pack and kind of show that strength if they can work together.
Brandon Hawken, the 23-year-old from Ontario, Canada, raced karts in the real world too, takes his talents to the sim, and scraps it out with Elvis Rankin as we climb up through the Rahal Straight. So this is the group that's pitted, that we think is fighting for the victory, that we expect are fighting for the $2,000 as we ride on board with Ethan Lamp through Rainy Curve. And I looked at the timing screen. So Adams and Salas have swapped positions there. So Adams now leads the race ahead of Vicente Salas.
And that's an interesting call to have these two battling out. We continue to watch the lap times, Jonathan, and really I don't see a separation. You give one lap to this pack, you give one lap to Adams and Salas, and also you can exchange here as long as you're not taking away the line from the other driver. You can do a little bit of a leapfrog here, and it's not going to slow you down. So perhaps maybe that was something where Adams saw a little bit of an advantage, and Salas just let him by because he didn't want to slow the pack down or go side by side.
Yeah, totally agree with what you're saying. As we climb through turn 6 here. Gosh, this circuit's so beautiful, Blake. I spoke about it earlier. You know, circuits such as the Circuit of the Americas, which iRacing laser scanned and developed, 60 to 80 hours worth of scanning. It took them about 1.5 years of man hours to complete. That's the amount of effort your iRacing crew put into their virtual layouts. And Laguna Seca is one that's been very popular amongst the service. Oh, and it looks splendid.
They all look splendid, and the one thing you consistently hear from the real-world counterparts that use iRacing to hone their skills as well is visually how accurate every tree, every bush, every little logo on a wall is just like it is in real life, where the cars are parked, where the tents are set up. Everything visually just really wraps it all together. I've heard that from time and time again, Parker Kligerman being one of them, of just being able to revisit a racetrack and visually have that recollection is something that iRacing does so well, not only at this racetrack, but at all the racetracks that they put those fine details into.
That's Bergeron up ahead, just upshifted. You saw the smoke from the rear end of the Formula V. And ahead of Bergeron is Brunner, then Hawken, and then Rankin, who still leads the pack. These five are keeping it poised, keeping it under control as they head into the Andretti hairpin yet another time. So we've crossed the halfway mark of this race. Who's your favorite so far? Has to be Elvis Rankin. Even though he leads the pack, I still feel like he's the quickest here today.
I would say Elvis Rankin, but I think Brandon Hawken is in such a great position. We saw it in the first heat that he ran. Waited, bided his time. I really like having that car that's second and third in line, because obviously Brunner, Lampy, everybody that's behind is going to start jockeying for position a little earlier. I like being in second. You don't want to be the leader, but I don't think you want to be any further back than the second or third car in line either.
Yeah, even though Rankin qualified on pole, only driver in the 1 minute 41s, it's a completely different story for the race as we see Adams and Salas continue away and work together here in the lead, just like you'd see in a road cycling race. These two head to the final corner and we'll begin another lap. So track temperature out there. Now, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, Blake, because I've got it in Celsius, my Australian units, but 50 degrees Celsius, very hot. And that's something iRacing simulate too. This track is very sticky at the moment, but the tires can be very abrasive.
Well, and we look at Fahrenheit here for our American brethren, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. But
what does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you, that means it's also very hot. The sun's beating down. We haven't had a lot of cloud cover really roll in at all. We have cloudy skies, but I guess they're not passing over the sun. But that does mean it's a very slick racetrack. It's in the middle of the summer here at Laguna Seca, so that's definitely not a cool track temperature. We've seen sliding around since the beginning of this race, and that's certainly the case right here.
Did you catch that there, Blake? It was Vicente Salas, just a bit of a bump draft on Matt Adams, and they almost got it wrong.
That is such a fine line to play with, because if you're barely wrong, it's going to end up horrible. And if you spin Adams out, you have to come in and pit, because then you'll have no tow. But we've seen them be able to make this work, but gosh, is that so risky.
Salas is very experienced. We talked about him racing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, the premier series for NASCAR on iRacing. But he was also one of the top rookies in Rallycross. So if he wants to take to the dirt here, he certainly can. This is Again, you're packed with Elvis Rankin, who leads from 4th to 8th. Bergeron's down the back of the pack. Now, Laguna Seca here, fun fact for you, if you're from California, such as Vicente Salas, you might think that that's sand at most parts of the racetrack. It's actually not. This is just what the racetrack looks in the summer months. If you visit Laguna Seca in the winter, a lot of what you see on the edges and the outskirts is very green. It's grass.
Well, if you think of other road courses in California, Sonoma, another perfect example of the same thing. And, you know, even looking at Sonoma is beautiful. I think in both iterations, we did have a change for the race lead, though. Vicente Salas went by Matt Adams. Adams called over the radio to let him by. So that was a coordinated move to try and pull in here. We're hearing, Jonathan, about that pit road delta. It's about 24 seconds is the time that you'll lose on pit road, and the gap you see on your screen right there, 22 seconds. So a little behind if you're Adams and Salas.
Yep, 100%. It's not enough at the moment, as you say, Blake. So that 24-second mark is what we're looking for. It's been around 22 for most of this stint. So Salas and Adams are doing the right thing, but they need to somehow find that extra 2 seconds. 22.1 now, maybe a glimmer of hope for the two. So we just saw Jamison Huffman pit from the 3rd position, and that means he files down the order all the way down to 12th. So remember, sign up to iRacing yourself. If you're new to iRacing, this is a virtual simulator. You can drive these cars against multiplayer competition. 40% off. Go to iRacing.com/membership. Join in on the action. This car and this racetrack at Laguna Seca, it's included content. You got the battle for the lead up top. Battle for the effective lead down the bottom. It's not enough at the moment, Blake, for Salas and Adams.
No, and as you continue to look at that gap, you see on your screen on the left-hand side, 21 seconds for Rankin, for Hawkins. So they are continuing to make up ground. And if you're Adams or Salas, at this point, you just have to hope that this pack has an issue, that you're running nose to tail, you run in, you give a bad bump. Something has to happen, because the longer they stay out, Jonathan, they continue to lose that time. And I'm quite surprised that they've continued to kind of double down on this strategy.
And did you see that as well? Salas completely backed off on the main straight and just let Matt Adams through. So let's have a look at lap times. Last time around, a 1:42.2 for both your lead drivers, and the lap times down the second group is around a 1:41 range. So we could, and we're hearing from in the background, team radio, Vicente Salas could be pitting this lap round. You have to say Matt Adams has to join him.
I was about to say, Jonathan, with the exchange, it made me think that for a second they were going to try to make it on fuel and give each other an equal tow, but clearly that is not the case. Salas and Adams going to have the in-lap and out-lap of their life to try and tack on to this about 5-car pack we see running behind them. We'll see if they're capable of doing it, and if they have any issues getting onto pit road, assuming that information we're getting is accurate.
We'll wait and see. Pit entry coming up to the left. Now to the rider screen. They both scream into the pit lane, please stop, otherwise this virtual cameraman will be absolutely piled into. They do. They get it in time. 72 kilometers an hour, the pit lane speed limit, 45 miles an hour, depending on which part of the universe you're from. Now, where will they rejoin in comparison to Elvis Rankin and his posse behind?
I don't think it's going to be good. They had a much cleaner pit road entry than this pack did on lap 1, but you could see them coming, Jonathan. I think that this pack is going to go snarling on by. Maybe close, but I'd say give advantage to the cars that are on track right now.
Yet, wait a second. The pit exits on the exit of the Andretti hairpin. They're not going to rejoin now. They're not allowed to. They will receive a pit lane penalty if they do so. Rankin to the Andretti hairpin. Salas to the lead. It's much closer than we thought. Salas is going to rejoin in the middle of this bunch. And you know what? It hasn't ended that badly for the 18-year-old from Temecula, California.
It hasn't done. It definitely has gone well. His second was 2 seconds faster than what we saw for the majority of that lead pack. So Salas and Adams both had a magnificent in-lap. You saw them hook right along that rumble strip on the inside. What a great job that they did.
Now, Blake, I'm putting that down to potentially, tell me if I'm wrong, have they taken less fuel in their pit stop?
Well, that is something that could be the case. Obviously, everybody, I'm assuming in this pack that pit on lap 1, they would have just filled up. That would have been the smart thing to do. You go one lap, you really don't have that much to add. You have to fill it up, but perhaps Salas with less fuel, and we have trouble. One car into Salas.
Salas into the wall. Vicente's turned around. We've got other drivers involved too. Justin Brunner. Ethan Lampy, look at the damage on the left front for Salas. His race is done. Oh, he's straight into the wall. He can't even steer that car. And it's totaled. Oh, a virtual view of absolutely totaling a Formula V. You won't even be able to write that off for money, as Elvis Rankin now has also broken free in the lead. Is he going to run away with his $2,000 here today?
Rankin's got the better end of that, and that's exactly what we were fearful would happen if we saw these two groups come together, going side by side through the corkscrew. Everybody's been pretty calm, but in the waning minutes, they're all going for it. And boy, what a magnificent wreck that was. And like you mentioned, Brunner, Salas, Decker, out of it.
So here's a replay of what happened, and we ride on board with Salas. Let's have a look at the move. So what's happened here, Blake? Oh, he wasn't even involved.
No.
Oh, he's a victim of that incident onto his left.
It looks like contact getting into the corkscrew. A little bit of a disagreement clearly on the breaking point, and that's what ended up bringing out that incident. You said it correctly. Salas just an innocent victim. That was Brunner, who was run into by Ethan Lampy, who I think just had a difference of opinion on when they wanted to slow down for that corner.
So then there were 4, and they're battling for that prize pool of $2,000 for the victory. We think Rankin's got it. He's got a 1.5 second advantage on the rest of the pack. But the entourage behind is going to scrap it out for your podium positions. Brandon Hawken in second. Will he be $1,000 richer? Matt Adams in third. And Alex Bergeron in fourth. If Alex Bergeron can make 2 passes here, an extra $500 cash in US dollars into his pocket.
And boy, do you have something to manage here, Jonathan. You have, obviously, if you three get together and you help each other, one of you has a shot to win this race, but as that lead gets a little bit larger and perhaps out of reach, you want to start battling for every bit of cash that you can potentially grab. So we'll see how long they do it. Less than 2 laps to go, and they're looking to go side by side for second here, so I would say this is music to Elvis Rankin's ears.
Oh, certainly. Certainly for Elvis Rankin. Just joined the Apex Racing team a few months ago. That's his simulation racing team that he races with. They're a bunch of professional racers. They compete full-time on the iRacing service in many of your World Championship competitions. For Alex Bergeron here in fourth. Races for Team ABR. He's a 2-time World of Outlaws Sprint Car champion. His dad introduced him to racing, and he finished 24th here last year in this event. This is a big improvement into the prize-paying positions. Is he going to make a move into the corkscrew? Oh, we wait and see. It got a little tangly there between Adams and Hawken for second.
And Adams throwing that block, running that defensive line. Adams is just praying for Hawken. If you could push me up, maybe we have a chance to catch Rankin. I think that gap sitting at 2 seconds, Jonathan, just a little too wide here with coming down to the white flag here.
Through turn 10 and then 11. Your potential winner is up ahead in Elvis Rankin. And then we sort out the rest of the prize-paying positions. Hope you enjoyed all this action today. I've certainly enjoyed it, and it's yet to finish. Formula V's at Laguna. Sign up and join in. White flag, there it is by your virtual marshals. $500 on offer here for Alex Bergeron if you can make a couple passes as well. We switch to the battle for 5th and 6th. Remember, prizes paid down to 10th. Couple hundred on offer for this bunch. Lampy and Liebert. Bolin as well. They swap positions. Liebert down to 7th.
And Liebert going to try to make up all that ground. Lampy perhaps in the catbird seat. He runs a little bit wide. They work through here. Bolin going to try to make a little bit of a move here. Heading towards turn 5. Can he do it? Oh, what a move to the inside for Bolin, and it looks like Lampy's going to block that. They might be 3 abreast.
Yep, Alex Bergeron we ride on board with. And now to turn 6. This is not normally an overtaking position. We're going to go too wide through here. Contact between those two. On the block and the defensive is the 99 of Hawken, and that means Bergeron's turned around and into the wall yet again. This happened during the heats, remember, at the final corner. Now all eyes will be on Elvis Rankin. We know he's going to potentially win this one, and we're trying to pick apart which of these black cars is who. This is Lampy. This is the
Adams
battle.
got together through the corkscrew.
Oh, yeah, Adams is off the racetrack. Exactly. Good spot there. So the race is coming to a close. I don't know which car to pick out and which battle to pick out for the moment. Elvis Rankin is through to the final corner. The young 15-year-old is going to be $2,000 richer. He wins the North American final for the PAX Arena Almost Pro 5K Finals.
And Rankin gets it done. Graham Bolin on the last lap goes from 7th to 2nd to make $1,000. Jonathan, we had chaos everywhere back in those battles, and we're going to get a great look at them.
All right, we'll try and pick apart who's who. So that's the 99 of Hawken, and so he went to the defensive, very aggressive, and that's where he and Bergeron collided. And so what do we have to say about that? Very aggressive move by Hawken on the defensive. It's the final lap. You have to expect it.
Yeah, you have to run that defensive line, and you know that you really don't have any counter move for that block. Also, if you're Bergeron, you have that momentum heading up the hill. You got a better exit. Can't expect him to lift either. So Bergeron into the wall, and then Adams and Hawken, their cars are destroyed. They can barely turn them after that.
100%. So let's have a look at your final results. Oh my God, take a breath. Relax. If this is your first experience of iRacing, oh man, it was action-packed. Elvis Rankin, $2,000 richer. Well done to the young man. I've seen him race for many years on iRacing, and he's getting better and better year after year. Graham Bolin in second. Jarrett Liebert rounds out the podium. Now remember, third place, $750 to Jarrett Liebert. Didn't expect that heading into the final lap at all. Jarrett Liebert was 7th entering the final lap of today's race. Lampy ended up 4th ahead of Riley Thompson, who rounds out the top 5. Noah Carpenter, congratulations to him down the order. He also earns $100. Everybody from 6th to 10th, $100 in their pocket from today's event. Brandon Hawken, unfortunately, on that final lap, missed out on a few hundred, but at the end of the day, Blake, some of these drivers are in it for the money. Some are in for the fun, as we will see the fun here from Rankin. A celebratory burnout from the young 15-year-old. I don't think he can actually burn out that Formula V.
No, I think Jonathan, he probably doesn't have enough fuel to do one, so he may have just done enough to get around on the victory lap, but I don't think he has enough to get there. But when we were looking at these results, just heartbreak when you look at Matt Adams, Alex Bergeron, Brandon Hawken, Vicente Salas, drivers we saw who were so competitive, so fast all throughout this event, and they come home with nothing in terms of cash. Obviously, you have a lot of fun, but a real heartbreak for those drivers to come away empty-handed.
Very disappointing and a lot of heartbreak, as you say. Salas down in 16th. A potential winner in this event is a DNF, not classified. We talked about 12th position there. Matt Adams finished 10th here last year. He got some prizes, Blake. But today, man, I mean, how do you bounce back from this as a driver mentally? You're in it for the fun, but man, those prizes are oh so hungry, oh so valuable for you.
They are, and it's what you do these events for. I know a lot of these type of races, Jonathan, if you're doing them, a lot of times if you're not the winner in about a month, some of these drivers may not remember where they finished. It's all about coming out on top, getting that big prize money. So for many of these drivers, this is just, you know, something to put in the memory bank and move on, but obviously not for Elvis Rankin. Did an incredible job and did what we didn't think we would see. Somebody set themselves away from the pack after that contact, and really he was just able to cruise on home to take home $2,000.
Yeah, and a very valuable $2,000 for Elvis Rankin. That's a lot of money for a 15-year-old. Now, here's the beauty of virtual racing, Blake. Look behind me. That was dark, that window. about an hour, 2 hours ago. You're in the USA. We can commentate virtually together as if we're in the same booth. They can race out there on the racetrack as if they're from different locations. Boy, virtual racing is the way of the future almost.
It really is, and that's what makes iRacing so great. I know in an event that happened just a couple of months ago, I was able to race with my twin brother who is in Okinawa. He's in Japan right now, and we were able to have some time together on the sim and be able to race. That's something that's only possible in something like iRacing, and it's one of the great things about this. And you know, it obviously makes me happy too, because I didn't have to wake up at, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the morning to do this either.
Yeah, exactly. So I've suffered with that for many years, and don't remind me of it yet again, Blake. Please don't. Now, you yourself, you race yourself virtually on iRacing, and you have a lot of experience on the sim. $2,000 for yourself. You can invest in some great equipment. What can you get for yourself to compete with the best on the iRacing service for $2,000?
Man, I'm trying to think because you can look at computer parts, you can look at monitors, you can there's so many different companies that are invested in making different sim rigs, whether it's steering wheels, equipment for brakes and pedals. I know I've been a simple man myself. I've had the same steering wheel for about 11 years now, so I'm kind of old school about it, but I know so many folks, they love to get the newest direct drives, force feedback, all that stuff. They love jumping in on that. But yeah, 15 years old, $2,000. Have a pretty fun weekend in the summer. If you're Elvis Rankin, I'm sure he'll enjoy that quite a bit.
Certainly. And if you are new to iRacing, sign up right now. So go to the iRacing.com website /membership, 40% off new memberships. If this is your first experience of iRacing, jump in and experience it for yourself. Get yourself some equipment, get yourself a virtual wheel, and you can drive around Laguna Seca in a Formula V. Now, we are trying to get our winner, Elvis Rankin, for a word. We'll hopefully get him shortly and speak to him and hear the emotion from the young 15-year-old. Just celebrated his birthday last week, Blake. Couldn't get better than this. Wow. What a birthday present.
It's awesome to think of how far this has come. I remember, you know, I was sim racing when I was 13, 14 years old, iRacing and some of the predecessors to the sim. But I don't remember having the opportunity to race for $2,000, Jonathan. I guess maybe, you know, this is all about timing, being in the right spot at the right time. It's incredible to see how all this has transpired and these type of events that are put on, everything that's going into it, the effort from a broadcast perspective, the prize money that's being awarded. It's starting to match, in some cases, real-life racing. So it's so cool to see that, and that people like Elvis or like Graham Bolin have an opportunity to click on their computer and make more than $1,000 in a given weekend driving on something that they obviously love to do.
Yep, that's your race winner, the American, Elvis Rankin. Hopes to be a NASCAR Sprint Cup driver in the future, and he's done very well for himself here today. The Lil King, what a victory.
Idiot.
Oh, sorry, Elvis, have we got you? Just confirming. Oh, so he can't hear us. So excuse me, Blake. We'll get him shortly. No. So we're just trying to get him shortly.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Elvis. Can you hear us?
And sorry, I'm not an expert with.
All right. Well, Blake, he's just said he's not an expert with this, but he should be an expert driving the car.
Well, we've clearly seen that for sure. Well, Elvis, you get the opportunity to run in this race, you take advantage, and you schooled some of the best sim racers that there are to offer on this platform. How does it feel to come in and be the young gun and be able to outrun all of these fantastic drivers on here?
Yeah, it feels really good. I was a little worried coming in because I didn't feel like I had the pace. I was trying to put in the hours and that stuff, but for me it was just a little frustration with the car, and then right into the race practice, just something just clicked. I don't know what, but I just had speed and I felt like I had pace. I got confidence, and then yeah, I think it showed. I stuck it on pole and won the heat race, and then got a little lucky with the wreck in the background, but I just tried to keep it straight and smooth and pull one home.
Well, talk about confidence. You think of everything that had to go in this race, jockeying for position against some great drivers, and also being able to come down and make a green flag pit stop on lap 1. It works out for you. Obviously, talk about that strategy call, because that is a big time move to do that and have it work out like it did for you.
Yeah, really for me, it was just about when I made the call, I had watched the European race and I was just taking notes about that and like, okay, I saw this. Okay, is somebody passing here? What's going to happen? And just making those kind of mental notes going into the race. And some of those I didn't have to use in the feature, but in the heat I had to use the racing ones. But the pit I thought was interesting because you pit on lap 1 and I was confused about it, but it worked. Yeah, it was good strategy and it paid off.
Well, it certainly did. And again, an amazing job, Elvis. Congratulations on your win. And I don't know, what are you going to do with that $2,000? I have to ask you.
I don't know. I gotta say one thing though, is I know where some of it's going. Some of it's going to Apex Racing Team for sure. They've helped me out so much with everything and taking me under their wing. Just thank you to those guys, all of our sponsors, SDK, VRS, Apex Racing Academy, and Sim Peters. Thank you to those guys. I know some of my teammates run in PESC, and they keep us all on the track, so thank you to those guys.
Well, Elvis, again, congratulations. And Jonathan, how about the young gun? Sounds like a seasoned veteran when I'm talking to him.
Oh, he's brilliant. Elvis Rankin, as he said, just joined the ART team, and he's been proving day after day. He was already good before he joined them, and now he's climbing up even more. So conclusions from today's event, Blake. I love the Formula V. I love Laguna. It's a great track car combination. But iRacing have over 100 circuits, 350 track combinations you can drive on those circuits. Sign up and join in on the fun. There's so many more you can race, and it doesn't only include road. You can race ovals, rallycross, you've got dirt ovals, so much more.
And that is exactly right. If you think, guess what? These type of races that we just saw, they happen hundreds of times a day in all different types of vehicles, tracks, you name it, here on iRacing. So if you want to be a part of it, you like what you just saw, well, guess what? That is the place to go, iRacing.com, signing up and being able to take part in these type of events. Because as a broadcaster and Jonathan, as someone who races this sim, this is what we love to do, is to go out here and just have fun watching and being able to compete in these races as well.
Yeah, it certainly is. You can compete with the best out there. You can take it seriously, have a bit of fun. You've got licensing systems, safety ratings, so much more. So many cars to dabble with as well. Oh, I love it. So it's been an awesome broadcast today. We hope you enjoyed today's event of the PAX Arena Almost Pro 5K Finals. You can visit the iRacing website for more information on upcoming events and sign up today and join in on the action. Now, thanks to our partners for today's event at PAX Arena. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to our entire iRacing production crew behind the scenes. From myself, Jonathan Simon, Blake McCandless alongside me. Hope you enjoyed all the action where we crowned our champion of North America in Elvis Rankin. And we say so long from sunny California.